episode of Good Playing with You, the weekly gaming podcast. I'm Dan Whitehill, and I'm joined by our Good Playing Good buddies, Matt Lord.
How's it going?
And Matt Maulding. In today's show, we're covering the latest in the Nintendo Direct. We'll be covering the Elden Ring trailer that just dropped, Helldivers 2, plus more top headlines of the week. And if that isn't enough, Maulding is back with the best video game weapon bracket. But before all that, let's check in with my ensemble of Matts and find out what everyone's been playing this week. Lord?
All right. Well, it's been a good week, I would say. I had a little taste of Helldivers 2, which we'll get into more later in this episode. I dropped some Call of Duty Warzone, which was a throwback to a different time. That game, I don't know if I can play it anymore. I feel like I'm just too old and the kids are too good anymore. And then
cheating.
Yeah, I think that's really the biggest issue is these cheaters on PC especially. It's crazy. It's a problem. And then Cyberpunk 2077, I should say. I almost forgot it. It's so I loved that game. It was so good. And I'm basically, well, I beat it a couple times and now I'm just kind of going back and doing all the side stuff. What a game. I loved it. Did you guys like that one?
It wasn't my favorite thing, but I am looking forward to going back and playing it again at some point.
Oh, I beat it, but I have strong feelings that we can talk about it another time because it's not short what I think and feel about that game.
Yeah, it was an interesting mix for sure. But yeah, that was really it for me. It was a nice chill week.
Maulding?
Nice. I finished Deathloop, which I was very proud of because I so rarely finish games, and that was the second time I attempted to finish it. I was a little disappointed because I didn't get an achievement for actually finishing the game. There are lots of achievements that I can still go back and hunt for, even after you're done with it. But I was really hoping to get that big, 100-point achievement for it, but it didn't happen. But I was very happy to finish it. It was a fun
That's anticlimactic.
Game.
It's like not being able to nut at the end.
Exactly. But I have nothing to show for it. But I really enjoy that game a lot. Recommend it to everyone. It's great.
Yeah.
I did, because last week I mentioned Tears of the Kingdom as a game I could always go back to. I started playing that again, which I really just love. It really sucks that you can't keep old save files and have new game saves in that game. It will save over your entire game. So that's just something you have to be aware of if you play it.
Did you do that?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I like just starting fresh and having a new fresh game. It's fine. I wish I didn't have to, but it is what it is. And then I just started playing again, trying out No Man's Sky because they just had a new game update for it. I don't know even enough about No Man's Sky to even tell you what the game update was or what changed or what they have, but I do know from the last time I played it, a lot is different and it looks really fun. So friend of the pod, Brendan, and I are going to be playing that co-op and trying out our survival space skills. So super excited about that.
I just remember the controversy surrounding the release of that game. It was wild.
I bought it on the PlayStation. It would have been PlayStation 3 maybe, or PlayStation 4 when it released to all that fanfare. And I immediately regretted it because it was terrible. But there is no game. Cyberpunk maybe included in that, but no game that had a turnaround like No Man's Sky did.
I agree. The most amazing redemption arc. So I'm curious.
Everything that they're doing is free. So you don't even have to buy the game. It's on Game Pass. So you get the game for free if you have Game Pass. But all the DLCs are free. Everything's free. I don't think there are any microtransactions. There might be that I don't know about. Maybe skins or something. But yeah, it's they've put a lot of work into that. And I'm super pumped for their new game too when that comes out.
Well, keep me posted because I'll drop in since it's on Game Pass if it's any good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can build your societies next to each other on the same planet or adjacent planets, and you can have teleporters from place to place. It's super fun.
Nice.
What are you, Dan? What are you playing? I think I know what you're playing.
Well, I'll tell you what I've been attempting to play. I've been attempting to play Helldivers 2. I've logged into that game or attempted to. I've turned it on. I haven't logged into the game multiple times throughout this long 3-day weekend and still failed every single time. In fact, I have the Steam database page on my phone and I'm refreshing it so I can see the peak of nerds. And then I try and go down at the valleys, but then it's always at random times and I fall asleep. So it's been frustrating to say the least.
After eating some pizza on your stomach, so yeah.
Nerds, yes, that's exactly me. But we'll talk more about Helldivers shortly. But because I was in the military space, shooter vein and mood, I then jumped back into Aliens Fireteam. The Pathogen DLC was on sale for $7, and it was definitely worth it. I had a great time in Aliens. I was shooting lots of bugs and didn't get kicked from the servers one time. So that kind of quenched my thirst for alien blood. And then when I wasn't playing that, I actually ended up watching Starship Troopers like everybody else.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was one of those people. I thought, oh, this original idea. I'm just going to rent this movie. Apparently everyone else rented the movie too and was talking about it. But so it was very Helldivers 2 themed weekend without me actually playing Helldivers 2.
Nice.
Yes.
Well, I gotta say, I watched Starship Troopers recently as well, and that movie is beyond good. They don't make them like that anymore.
No, it was before its time for sure.
It was that movie could for sure come out today and slay.
For sure.
That was when Doogie Howser was straight.
Yeah, exactly. And there was I feel like a lot of, this is me wild, but the acting in that movie, especially in the terror scenes, is haunting. It's crazy.
Okay, no, the acting is ass in that movie, dude. Everybody is completely awful, and it's so reminiscent. It's so foreshadowing Showgirls and what's going to happen, especially the way that Denise Richards throws up, and then Nomi Malone has it throw up. He cannot direct actors. Action, yes.
Yeah, the action moments, the parts where they're freaking out in the battlefield, is it's chilling to me. It brought me back.
It's like Helldivers, dude. It's like Helldivers. If we could only play it.
And the special effects are way ahead of their time.
Mm-hmm.
They still hold up. I was watching that on my 4K TV, and I was like, dang.
Yeah.
It was good stuff.
They did all right.
All right. Let's move on and get to the good stuff, though. Let's hop into the week's headlines. All right. Starting off this week, let's hop into Nintendo. They just had a big direct. Yeah, I agree with that sentiment, but they just had their direct. So after Xbox's big explosion and then PlayStation's state of play, we were finally treated to the third version of what's going on, and that is Nintendo's direct. And well, I'm still not quite sure what's going on when it comes to Nintendo.
Yeah.
Rather than kind of list everything out and talk about game by game, because there were over 21 games in the presentation, there weren't as many notable titles to dig into. So, rather than our usual version of dissecting the presentations and then grading it, I'd love to just open this up and hopefully, have you guys jump in and say, what were some of the standouts for you, and then we can give it a grade at the end.
I'll take this first. This was the proof that Xbox was taking Grounded and Pentiment to another system. So right there, I think of anything, that was probably the big news. Because quickly after they announced Grounded, I fell asleep. Because no, I didn't really fall asleep. But that was a snooze fest of an announced list. It was maybe it's just because the games aren't for me, and maybe that is why, but it really did seem like those were some stinkers.
I agree. I think they didn't want to be left in the dust by all the Xbox and PlayStation talk, so they had to do something, and I feel like they showed off essentially shovelware. I'm like, what is going on? This is literally a shovelware direct. There were a couple games that I feel like I could be excited for. One of them was Gundam Breaker 4. That looked actually pretty cool. Almost I didn't even know they had a previous 3 Gundam Breakers, but this one looked cool. I thought it looked fun. And then the new Super Monkey Ball that they showed off could potentially be fun with the multiplayer. Since Nintendo is all about doing like revamping these games to have multiplayer. They had Tetris 99, and then they had F-Zero 99. What else did they have? They had like the Pac-Man. Is that also? Yeah, I mean, all these games I feel like are cool, and so if they added the multiplayer to that, I could see it being cool. But really, there was no major announcement, so I was, by the end of it, I was just like kind of at a loss, like why they were showing off these games when they could have easily just packaged them up in a video and launched them on their official Nintendo YouTube channel.
I totally agree. I kept thinking like this could have been an email sort of situation. Like, why are we all here? What are we watching? And the first thought was exactly what Maulding said, is like, hey, Phil Spencer wasn't bullshitting. They actually, were planning this, and he wanted to be kind and let Nintendo reveal this in their thing. So he didn't want to say what the games were. So maybe his like, well, we were planning on talking to you guys about this, wasn't bullshit, but it was kind of like, if you knew this was coming, boy, you waited till the last minute. Xbox waited till the last minute to say that we're going multi-platform with some of these games, because just a week or so later, then Nintendo starts showing off the Xbox games on their platform. And they're lucky the reception was as good as it was, and that Xbox did such a good job, because that would have been put, Nintendo in a strange situation. But I think that the message was well received. I just wish it had been come out a little bit earlier. And the other thing was, maybe this presentation was a dud because they had anticipated announcing Switch 2, which we all know. There was just an article this week that Switch 2 still being rumored, nothing confirmed, but that the industry believes Switch 2 is now being pushed to early 2025 as a launch. And based on that rumor alone, Nintendo's stock prices dropped 8.8% this week. So I think maybe it was like Nintendo being, okay, Sony and Xbox went, we need to go. We don't have anything. Let's start pulling third party. We got to put something out there, because we're pushing our console until later. Will probably be later in the year. And they just grabbed as much as they could from the third parties. And what truly blew me away here was, out of everything, 2024 is such a surprising year already. Microsoft is the only one with announced first-party games. And then you look at, like Sony, who has nothing coming in 2024. And I got to say, Nintendo was a disappointment too. I mean, they really didn't have any big games. When you're ending your presentation with one more thing, and everyone's like excited, we have one more thing.
Zelda DLC. Yeah. I was like, maybe it's going to be that.
Yes. And it's like Endless Ocean.
Yeah.
Oof is right. I only know like one person in all of my friends that could be excited about that.
And he's a dolphin.
Exactly. And then I was like, wow, they made a game that you don't really do anything. You run around and swim around and look at creatures, and it's got 30-person or so multiplayer. I'm like, great. You've probably got everyone who's interested in that game could fit into one version of that game and play together, because that was the least interesting reveal I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was bad. Lord, I got the feeling, I think this is what you're talking about with the shovelware. Like, I was watching a bunch of mobile games being announced. Like, that's yeah. There was one that looked sort of interesting, where she's like, the character's shifting around with the environment, and everything on the screen shifts when she walks. Like, that one looked kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But
that reminded me of one of those, like, those little tile puzzles that you would get in your stocking for Christmas. For sure. It reminded me of that. When I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, that seems like
also a third of all Survivor challenges are that. So
yeah, I mean, nothing. Definitely, it wasn't a huge standout for me. I
would say, like, if I had to pick one, I never played Epic Mickey back in the day, so I was curious about that. Yeah. But will that go multi-console? Because I would imagine it wouldn't just be exclusive Switch. and it might look better on a higher end system. So I was like, okay, well, Epic Mickey, that's a nice surprise. That could be playable.
I do want to amend something I said in one of the previous podcasts, that how you can't really tell new generation stuff looks new generation. And now I'm going to amend it. When you look at the graphics and what Switch games look like, you're like, now I remember what old generation hardware,
what PlayStation 3 looked like. That's what it.
Now I remember what that stuff looked like. And yes, we do have much better looking games than we used to.
And it would be awesome. I mean, maybe Nintendo will play ball and put it on the Xbox. Did you see that happening?
Sure. Yeah.
It would be smart, because I know that the rumor was they didn't make enough money, and they didn't make as much money as they were hoping to on the first one, and then they tried again, and then they just kind of quietly killed the series after that. But speaking of graphics, one more, just to go back to that, was they also showed off South Park Snow Day, and I thought that was very interesting, because the graphics did not look good, and I was like, you're setting yourself up for comparison to other platforms when you're showing a game that we've already seen the gameplay, and it's not on par. Like, what are you doing? Why? Just saying, hey, it's here in case someone wants a subpar version.
Yeah,
right.
And
that's the only game I would buy, and I wouldn't buy it on Switch.
No way.
No,
not at all.
And it's gonna cost $50. It's like, or would it not? No, it would be like, it would be high.
I think Snow Day is actually going to be $40. I think it's only $39.99.
Okay,
across the board on all platforms.
Yes,
yeah, they
but
priced
it's still, it's like, man, like, I don't know if I'm not going to go to the Switch to buy something like that for even if it's $40 on there too. It's just, that's not where I'm going to be playing it.
No. Yeah. Just
so grades. Do you want to give your grades?
Yeah, definitely. Good call.
D-. It's a failure.
Yeah. I'm going to give it
D+.
I'm going D+ too. I'm definitely a D.
Solid
D+.
I'm there. I'm in that D. Give me that D. Is what I'm trying to say.
Hey, that's my line.
It's just, it was not. They kind of missed the mark. I think they were just trying to play catch up, and it was not.
And they wanted to have an event, I think, for Switch 2, and then I'm guessing that got pushed, and they just grabbed everything third party they could.
Do you think they'll actually announce the Switch 2 in a direct, or will that be a completely separate event? Because I feel like these directs are so lackluster anymore. My mind would be blown if they announced a system in one of these.
Well, they usually do big things around when E3 used to be, and I think they still do big presentations. If I were to guess, I would say that's probably when they would announce the official.
Yeah.
That's just guess.
Yeah,
no, I think that's right.
My question always is like, why would you hurt your Christmas and holiday sales by announcing the year before, so we'll see what they do. But I'm just curious, because there's a lot up in the air. But moving on, so definitely Nintendo gets a D from good playing with you, crew. But moving on to some actually anticipated games, we've got a couple of them here. First off, the new trailer for Elden Ring. Gentlemen, what did you think?
Yes. Matt, do you want to take it? No, I'll take it first.
Yeah.
So I love Elden Ring. I think Elden Ring's a fantastic game. Love playing it. Beat it. All those Souls games. A huge fan of all of them. I have never played the DLCs, because you get to a point where you're just like, I want to finish the game and just be done with it. It's so hard, so stressful. And then to pick up the DLC again and get reacquainted with it and play through this new content is really hard for me. That being said, this game, I think, is one that I will definitely play the DLC content and purchase this day one. It looks, they showed off some new weapons. It looks like a new spell system, maybe with little hearts and stuff. Like it could be a whole new spell area of expertise. There was it looks like almost some like hand-to-hand fighting in there, and definitely some new weapon powers. I can't remember what they're called in the game. But one thing also about those games though is, man, that story is just so convoluted. Played through that entire thing. They're showing photos and people that I'm like, I think I'm supposed to know who that is, but I really have no idea. Like, there's a painting, and I know I recognize that painting and where it is from in the game, but I have no idea who those people are. It's just, I have to watch someone talk about it who knows a lot more about the game than I do to be like, oh yeah, that's Michaela the Great Foot or whatever their names are. And yeah. So super excited to play it. We'll buy it on day one. Looks great. Elden Ring's fantastic game. It looks, yeah, I think it's great.
Wait, Michaela the Great Foot from OnlyFans?
Yes. Yeah, she's she's one of the playable or one of the boss fights.
Yeah, I am with you on that. The stories are always a little too convoluted for me, but that is where the YouTube lore experts come in and create like a 4-hour long video that you can sit and watch.
Ooh, sounds fun.
People do it. It's wild. You know, and I'm gonna be honest, I haven't caught the trailer yet for the Erd Tree quite yet. I still got a little homework to do. I feel like a failure, but I have read some tweets. I know it's going to be like really big. I think they said
that was my comment. Yeah, I was like, I sure hope this is a meaty DLC because it's coming in at $40, and that game is still $60. It really hasn't gone off of sale. I think there is going to be a bundle, like $80 or $90 or something like that. But it's still and it recently sold 23 million copies, so they obviously don't need to put this thing on sale. I can only imagine that their sales are going to continue to skyrocket through the roof when this DLC finally drops. And at $40, it's signaling that it's going to be pretty substantial. So that is exciting.
One of the breakdowns of it said that they think it's going to be the size of the very first area, and it's the very first area, and it's like little outskirts. So that area is really big, but not as big as I thought it would be going for. But I would prefer a smaller area, but just chock full of stuff to do. That is absolutely. I don't need to spend 15 minutes riding my horse from one area to the other if there's nothing to do in between. So chock it full of stuff, make it small. That's fine.
I think it's going to be a hit. I just heard that Elden Ring is not slowing down in sales at all. And Dan, do you still need to play?
Yeah, you're nuts. It's one of the best games of whatever 2022 or whenever it came out. It was so good.
It is. It's so good. And I have to say,
I love the creature design.
And it's I feel like it's the most accessible of the games. Like, you can jump in and not be wrecked immediately. I mean, you can, but it's not like a Bloodborne or
it is
Dark
absolutely
Souls.
The easiest Soulsborne game.
Well, I mean, I went to those key sites online to see if I could get a cheap version, and I looked at the sale. That's how I know it's still $60 and stuff, because I've been sniffing around, and who knows, I might pick it up. I definitely am curious to.
Suicide Squad for $140. Like, you're just nuts,
man.
Well, you know how I love bad games, and there are definitely some more on the horizon that I can't wait to talk about. But first, we do need to move on from good games like this and talk about Borderlands, the movie. So this is, of course, a huge series. I'm sure a lot of people play. But did you guys get a chance to see the trailer? Are you a fan of the game? And what did you think of the trailer?
Well, I'll jump on this one because I loved Borderlands and I loved the co-op in those games. I thought it was awesome. And local co-op too, which is just impossible to find anymore. But watching the movie trailer, I was hoping for a little more dark comedy, perhaps. And looking at this, it was a little too like Thor Ragnarok for me. A little too Marvel, lighthearted, too much almost too much gags going on. So I just kind of wanted to have like a dark side, and then just have like some jokes kind of tossed in, but not like, I think they're going a little too Marvel. And then it's like, it's weird. Like I feel like the Jamie Lee Curtis cameo is kind of like out of left field for me a little bit. I'm just like, is this just capitalizing on like her success that she's had recently? It was a lot going on in that trailer for sure.
Maulding.
What do you guys think?
So, yeah.
I mean, it was giving me Guardians of the Galaxy right from the very beginning. I mean, they have Claptrap, who's this full CGI character that is totally Guardians. I mean, it has 2 Oscar winners in it, Jamie Lee Curtis and Cate Blanchett. I mean, Cate Blanchett can do anything. She could play Claptrap, and I would believe that. But man, it looks really awkward. It looks really. They all look kind of uncomfortable.
Yes, awkward.
And yeah, Claptrap's voiced by Jack Black, who I can't stand. So having to listen to him do voice work on that is gonna be rough. I'm gonna see it because it's Borderlands is great, and I'll see it with my AMC Movie Pass, so I won't have to pay.
Oh, there we go.
Check you out. Hey.
They are not a sponsor of the pod.
Not yet.
And not yet. Yeah, so
Not
I mean,
ever.
I'm gonna go see it, but I'm not gonna enjoy it. I don't think it looks like it's for little kids. That's what
Yeah.
it's doing to me.
Interesting.
I agree with that. I felt like it was not nailing the demographic it should have been hitting. It is definitely like for a youngster. And
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the true fans of Borderlands are an older demographic.
60, 70 years old, like us
60
now.
years old.
Right.
It's like they missed the mark. Dan, what do you
Yeah.
think?
I think that first off, looking at the history, the movie was announced 9 years ago,
Yeah.
and then it was shot right at the tail end of the pandemic in 2021. And then we didn't hear or see anything until 2024. So as a super fan who really loves Borderlands, like I'm a little OCD crazy about it, I was a little worried that it wasn't going to show up at all. And when I saw this, I was happy to see anything.
Oh.
I think I am much more of the converted hardcore, die hard. You guys make fun of me because I love crappy games, and apparently it translates to movies as well, because I'm so in on this.
Oh.
And I know that there
you
are
like
haters
crappy
out there.
movies, chopping
Oh
ball.
man.
Yeah, chopping mall is awesome. But this one, yes, I think they missed the mark in terms of the casting somewhat. People are making fun of Lilith because she is an older actress, and I think that's so besides the point and rude. I think she looks fantastic in it. I think the Claptrap, now that's an example of miscasting. Kevin Hart's obviously being Kevin Hart again, so that's a little bit like, oh, okay. So the casting is a little bit of a bummer. The fact that they are going like Guardians of the Galaxy all ages when the subject matter is a little bit darker and has darker humor is a little bit of a disappointment, but I'm still here for it. I'm still, it can still be good. It can still be good until we see it, and then it's not, and then I'll be like, oh shit.
I didn't realize they announced it 9 years ago. That's insane. That's a long time. That is way too long. And I mean, how are they gonna? I mean, right? I'm not mistaken saying that it's Borderlands is darker humor, right?
I mean, there's like meat bags and stuff that you shoot and they're all. I think they're all cannibals that you're fighting for the most part. And yeah, I would say it's pretty dark.
I feel like I don't remember there being like it almost like there was like a Mad Max element going on in the trailer too, and I don't remember there being that type of element.
I don't know. I think that
I guess there was
the first one for sure was very Mad Maxy.
Yeah.
Maybe
I think
they
nailed the parts that they need to nail. They nailed the vehicle combat. They nailed the vault hunting aspect. Hopefully, my hope is that Tiny Tina has some great lines. We just haven't heard them yet. So I'm here for it.
Yeah. Well, Dan.
Yeah.
I'm like, we can't live stream that from the theater, I guess, but
no.
Yeah, I know. It'll probably crater, but I'll be there. Probably over
another video game movie for trivia.
Yeah,
exactly. There we go.
Well, speaking of things that are hits, maybe too much of a hit, and still a little bit of a disaster, is Helldivers 2. And then we teased that earlier, but now let's dive into Helldivers as we pack their second weekend in release, which had humongous numbers. In fact, they reached the top of the Steam charts for concurrent players, topping out around 450,000, almost 500,000 people at the exact same time. And that was just on Steam. We don't even know how many more were trying to play, like myself, on PlayStation. So saying that this game, is nothing short of a phenomenon, it just is phenomenal. What's happening here, but how much of this is warranted and how much of this is just overhype, and what is the reality of Helldivers 2? Lord, I know you just picked up the game. What are your thoughts?
It's hard to say, but I believe a lot of it is hype right now. Just with how much talk the game had. Like, there's a lot of chatter around it on Twitter. Everyone on all my friends that are on Steam are playing it, and they're kind of doing, I think they're doing the thing where they're just logged in and stay logged in forever.
As of patch 10 that came out yesterday, though, however, they are kicking people.
They're kicking people off
after 15 minutes of inactivity. Yeah.
And I got about, I think the second night I got it, I was able to play about 4 hours. And I was in, and it ran well on the time I had it.
Did you have any missions that canceled out on you, like Dan was saying last week, where you play it for like 45 minutes and then you lose everything?
Oh, okay. I didn't have any crashes. It actually worked really well. I did some of the robot runs, which I feel like don't get a lot of publicity. A lot of the talk has been all about the bugs that you see.
Well, this weekend, so I'm seeing that they're doing different weekends and stuff. So the first weekend kind of was more about bugs. This weekend was, the robots were taking over, and I thought those missions were hell. But I do like that they can change the theme of the weekend and some of the content. So this was a more robot themed weekend.
Oh, okay. So then maybe
it'll change.
I mean, the robots I was really impressed with. I thought the robot design was like they sound scary. They look really good. The graphics in that game are actually I think some of the best I've seen in a bit. What do you think, Dan? Yeah, they look good.
They're definitely good. I think for me, the robots were tuned a little high. Like, I was playing really low difficulties and still getting my cooter kicked. And so it was a little bit brutal, because then I would fail out, or I would come out and I would go to bug missions that were easier and that sort of stuff. So I think that there's some tuning and adjusting that they need to do there. I really didn't get to play much. I am excited to play it, but it's not as great as, it's a great game, but it's not like this great. People, we shouldn't be crashing servers and taking people forever to log in. And I'm just kind of blown away. I'm like, this is something got a little bit out of hand, but it's okay. It'll be great, once it loads up and works. Again, I got to reiterate what I said last week is I get concerned with how long this game's going to last in terms of, how much. I love that they can theme things and they can open up new planets, and I'm sure they've got new enemies coming any day now. So they do make the experience a little bit different, but formula remains the same. And how long is that going to be interesting? I'm just hoping some of these people burn out so that we can actually get it.
Honestly, I feel like the bar of gaming is so low right now that when a decent game comes along, they crash it. And that's exactly. Palworld and Helldivers probably are the most polished games that have come around in a couple years.
Polished?
Well, I don't know if I would say polished.
Palworld is not. Yeah, that is the
not
opposite
polished.
Of polished.
Not polished, but
and I love it.
A game to be a game, I guess I should say.
I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
Well, can I ask a question about the gameplay? Because I have not played, and I love upgrading and having that be part of the gameplay loop, a la Monster Hunter. So is that present in the game? Like, do you upgrade your weapons with the money that you get when you extract? Is that the loop?
Yeah. And Matt, this thing's only $40. So that's kind of why I think everyone's just diving in. It's like everyone's scared of these $70 games because they're overhyped and they're buggy and they're crap. And then this is something that Lord was touching on earlier before we hopped on the pod was, we're not seeing the backlash that we traditionally see with $70 big marketed games that fail right out of the gate. What we're seeing, weirdly enough, here is a really good, kind-hearted, reaction to the developers. The developers are doing everything they can, and they're doing everything right in terms of their communication. They're constantly tweeting. We're at patch 10 already. I'm sitting here counting, waiting for it to work, but the audience reaction has been phenomenally positive to this game. And I think that's due in part to the communication, but also the price and the fact that the game is fun when it works. So, even though we're sitting here like a nerd bitching about the game not working, Maulding, I do say pick it up because it would be fun for us to play. It does have a great loop of upgrading and unlocking new weapons. There are 9 levels of difficulty, so you can really fine tune what kind of mood you're in to play. And some of the resources that you need to upgrade are only on the higher difficulty, so you do have to kind of get good. It's fun, but friendly fire is serious in that game, and so you'd have to promise me that you wouldn't target me. That's my only fear.
I love it. I may or may not have shot you in the back of the head. I love it.
3 times in a few games, yes.
Yes, maybe. I don't know. By the time I'm interested in it, it'll probably have died down and be easier to access. I think you're so right about the price point. I think that is where they get a lot of leeway on these things being bad. Whereas you look at, I was just mentioning, you look at Suicide Squad being so expensive and not given any leeway at all. I mean, I think there was just a report that all of the Batman games, the Rocksteady Batman games, now have more players than the Suicide Squad game. So, I mean, that's just a total disaster. But it wouldn't have felt like such a disaster maybe if it wasn't $70. I mean, and then $80 if you buy it. I think there was an $80 option if you wanted to play it a couple days early, and then I'm sure there's a $90 legendary edition. Like that kind of gouging is just really exhausting, and I think that is part of the reason why Helldivers and Palworld have been such successes, is because, hey, I can spend $40. That's just 2.5 meals at KFC I can hold off eating. Maybe I'll pick it up. I don't know. I haven't decided.
Yeah, I mean, and it's good fun. I was playing with 3 other, so we had 4 people on our squad, and it was
that
just
makes a huge difference.
It makes a huge difference. So it was like we were playing on one of the highest difficulties, and we were able to like kind of mow them down. I mean, I was getting carried. I think they were already level like 35 or something, and I was like a level 1. And
I think I'm at 8.
Yeah, they played, and it was like it was wild. Like they weren't kidding when it was like what they were saying, like Vietnam simulator or something like that, because it is like crazy hectic, and lights are flashing and lasers are flying. It's an experience,
and there's definitely some depth to it. It's not just a stupid run and gun. You have to go in there and you have to know, like, okay, if I use this ultra weapon on the robot carrier, I can take it down before it lands, or these bugs only get injured from this side, or hey, if my squad is stealth, we can avoid, because it's got like some of these bugs and stuff have like alarms on them that call in others, and if you can avoid taking off that alarm, they're called the commanders, I believe, and if you can shoot and kill the commander first, it won't call in other swarms. Like there's a lot of little things you have to learn, and that I'm sure those 35 guys know. So there is depth to the game there, and that's the kind of stuff that and definitely intrigues me, but also terrifies me. But it's cool.
It was great.
I do have to say, I think the one of the keys to success, though, for this game has been their continued communication. And on that note, Lord, I know that you had an article that you wanted to talk about.
This was this was a recent statement from. So this is saying. So the Helldivers 2 boss says overhiring devs would be a horrible response to the game's success. Now, this is an interesting statement because when I first read this, I immediately thought, I couldn't even help it. I thought, you know what? Your game doesn't work, and I can't even get into the servers. So something needs to happen. I think that's a great sentiment. Like, overhiring and firing, that's no good for anybody. But at this point, when your game is so gridlocked, and saying that, it made really no sense to me. But then you go into the Twitter comments, and everyone is so positive about the game.
On
And
Reddit too.
yeah, and you're just like, okay, this game can't do any wrong for some reason. And I don't know what to make of that. Dan, do you guys have any insight into this?
I don't know.
Silence.
Yeah.
Probably. Maybe it's a reflex to how the layoffs have been, and so any positive spin on that is getting rewarded. Maybe that would be my take on the positive reaction.
And I know that this is not a multi-console game. It's only PlayStation and PC currently. But I'd like to maybe take a different angle on it and say maybe some of the responsibility for these smaller games comes from the console manufacturer. For example, Sony is the publisher of this game. Sony needs to step up and have a strike team and send in theirs and spin up servers and be able to support this thing. And not only is it good business, especially when you're the publisher, but if this is a multi-console game and this game only works on PlayStation, hey, that's great PR for PlayStation. Or if Xbox, had gotten the game and they could have spun up a strike team that on the second weekend was able to.
That's what they did with Palworld. That's what Xbox did with Palworld. Yeah.
And so I think we need to see strike teams from these console developers, because these small games do need help when they are, blowing up like this. And so I look to the console manufacturers and put a little bit of blame there, especially when they're the publisher.
And just from the outside looking in, I would expect that to already be the case, considering in the PlayStation Showcase, this was one of the games that headlined the show.
It was the first game, I think.
First game. So you would
now the guy, the lead developer and president did say that they did have some help from Sony. So I don't want to insinuate that no help from Sony has come. But when you're still capping your game at 450,000, you're leaving money on the table, because, like it or not, this game does have microtransactions in it, although they're not mandatory. And you can actually find some of the super credits in the actual missions themselves, which I love. I think that's a little bit of incentive, but they're pretty rare, but they are in there, and you have to extract with them. But so you're leaving money on the table. So it's only good business practice for Sony or someone to step in and get as many players on these games as they can while they're popular, because you're only going to make more money. So that's really, where I think their incentive is.
Totally.
Yeah.
Can I lead that into my thing about the EA game that I want to talk about? I wanted to talk about this last week because it kind of goes into that. I think it does. There is a connection there that EA and the studio behind Immortals of Avium, which launched last year, supposedly or reportedly invested $125 million into making this game. And this is a brand new single player IP. There is no microtransactions in it. There's no grind. It has a short running time. It's not one of these games you play that you're supposed to sink thousands of hours into. And it turns out no one bought it, that it failed miserably. And I think I'm worried that they're taking the wrong lessons from that maybe that microtransactions should be in the game. That does lead people to continue to play it. Maybe we do need some grind. Maybe we do need a long game. And I think it just wasn't a good game. And and what do you guys think? Did either of you play it or try it out?
I haven't even heard of this.
Oh no! So it's basically like a Call of Duty sort of first-person shooter, but you use magic instead of guns. That was the gist behind it, and it was a huge $125 million to make it.
Yeah.
That's
For
insane.
me,
I mean,
it did
yeah.
hit my radar, and I'll tell you what, and I'm a sucker for all of these games, but it was a new IP, and they did very little to introduce it to players. They put it out over the summer, and which was not the best time. And I pick
No.
up all of these little things. I love to find gems like Remnant 2, which was phenomenal last year that I had never heard of before. So I'm the perfect person to kind of jump on this, but their marketing was not there. I didn't understand the gameplay loop. I couldn't visually it didn't appeal to me as much. So when they come and they say, like, oh, the audience didn't respond to this is why we're not doing this. No, it's like, screw you. You didn't do the work you needed to do. I don't know that this is a bad game because I haven't played it yet, but I do know this wasn't an interesting game. So don't blame me if your game doesn't interest me. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
And
That well said, Dan. Well said. Get after him.
But it does suck because I do love single player, games. And and I think it was Kotaku or somebody tweeted shortly after, like, this is going to negatively impact single player narrative games. And then the rest of the audience reaction was, no, screw you, because look at the top 10. We had Hogwarts as the top selling game, and that was single player. Yep. We had Spider-Man 2. We had Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. We had Jedi Survivor, and those are all the top sellers of last year. So they can't say that this genre doesn't do well. And I feel like that's what they were kind of trying to do, and blame the audience for not supporting this genre when we are supporting the good versions of it.
Yeah.
So
you got to make a quality game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on
and
them.
Those are even Hogwarts, which is not my favorite thing in the world, was a quality game. Like, yeah, it was, I didn't feel cheated after I bought it. Yeah. So, and here's another thing. Do you think that maybe sales are being affected by what my attitude is, which is, I'll just wait to play that $70 game on Game Pass? I'm just going to wait for it to come out on Game Pass and try
100%. And I also feel like the price barrier, when it's a new IP, and people bemoan sequels all the time, but that's the unfortunate part, is that people already know what the experience is, so they know what they're getting for their $70. When you've got a brand new game like this, you don't know what your experience is like for $70. And that's why Helldivers did as well as it did, is because it came in at $40. And you can say, yes, it's Helldivers 2, but it is completely different than the over-the-top sort of Helldivers 1 game. This is a completely different game. But it was a much more palatable, $40. So they shot themselves in the foot initially, being a little bit greedy, coming in at $70 and not explaining what the product is. And then at 2, I think you are right, Matt. Shout out to...
Thank you. It's about time you realized it.
Shout out to Dead Island 2, which was a great game, but it also came out on Game Pass. And that's the thing. Sometimes when you're like, okay, that looks like a fun game, but I don't know if it's a $70 game to me, you will sit back and wait. And I've kind of got a laundry list of games.
Well, that's what you did with Diablo.
Bingo. That's exactly what I did. And I'm, my patience is being paid off next month, and I can't wait to play it. But that's exactly what I think. You're right. People are seeing these games. They're not sure if they're going to like it or not, and they're going to sit back and wait because of Game Pass is going to give it to them.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah. All right. So moving on from that, real quickly, I know we're going to run a short time, but I would be remiss if we didn't touch on Final Fantasy, because that Metacritic score, doggy. Matt, this was your story.
Maulding. Maulding.
Oh, Lord. Whoever.
Lord.
One of you guys.
Yeah, well, guess what? The Final Fantasy Rebirth Metacritic score is sitting at a 93 right now.
That's incredible.
And that is seriously incredible. I am super pumped for this game, to be honest. Like, I can't wait to jump in the open world. I was a little scared hearing that there's some hitching, stuttering business going on. But, I mean, performance issues aside, I do want to see what the game looks like outside of Midgar. And I think I'm probably going to have to pick this one up when it comes out for the PS5.
Yeah, I the last few pods I've been shitting on the first one because I found it so boring, and this one, maybe the open worldness of it, it looks like it wouldn't maybe bore me as much. I don't know.
So are you in Maulding or no?
No.
I think I'm not in for 70. I think I'm gonna wait a bit. I'll be fine to wait until it gets a little bit cheaper.
Lord, 93. Are you in?
I mean, I think I'm in. I'll probably wind up picking it up for.
There goes your kid's college education.
Yeah,
just right out the door.
$70. Sorry, love bug, you're staying home.
Well, we'll definitely look forward to hearing your review on the podcast in the future when that comes out.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, moving on. I wanted to get to listener emails up next. All right, so we got an email, goodplayingwithyou@gmail.com, and you can write into that address as well. This one comes from Jack A. in Los Angeles, and he says, "Hey guys, enjoying the podcast and the YouTube channel. So with all the remakes happening, including Resident Evil and Silent Hill, is there any franchise that you think should be remade? My personal choice is Infamous, but what do you guys think?"
Maulding?
Infamous was a great game. I would love to see. That's a good choice. I would love to see a remake of Final Fantasy Tactics. It's a game from the PlayStation era. It's a phenomenal game. It's been ported to multiple times. It's been ported to other things, but I would love to see a full-throated remake of it. And then there are also lots of calls to have a remake of, or even just not a remake, but a up-res or whatever of Bloodborne. There's a lot of people want to see that. As we were talking earlier about Soulsborne games, that's one that's on the list for sure.
That one's great. Good choices, Maulding. And
thank you.
Played some Tactics on the PSP back in the day.
Yes.
That was the home for that one.
Lord, what about you, Lord?
My pick was Parasite Eve. Did you guys ever play that JRPG from back in the day on PS1?
1997 or 1998. College dorm playing that.
Tell me, what is that?
It's just an awesome RPG back in the day. You play as... She has a funny name. It
is
like
it Parasite?
rhymes.
Is it Eve?
No, it's like you're basically a detective in New York, and kind of kicks off with all these people lighting on fire at the opera, and you're looking around, and the lead opera singer is like actually this thing that is turning everyone crazy, and mitochondria has a big play in the whole thing. I actually just played it on the Steam Deck. Shout out to the emulation on that system, because it's freaking great. And the combat system is really cool. This dome kind of comes out from you, and you have like your shotgun or pistol, and like if the enemies are in this dome, you're able to attack them, and it's almost like real time navigating, and it's just like a very unique combat system that I haven't seen utilized enough. But I really think that that franchise
sounds like Final Fantasy. How is that different from Final Fantasy?
It's very Final Fantasy. Yeah.
It's hard to say, because you kind of have like the weapons in the game are like customizable, and they're like they're like real world. Like you'll have like an M4, and then this dome will come out, and you'll be able to like. It's kind of hard to explain. I suggest watching some gameplay, and you'll kind of get a better idea. It could be exactly like Final Fantasy, but great game. Should definitely come back for round 2, if you ask me. How about you, Dan?
I'm a huge fan of Dead Rising. I know that Capcom recently sent out a survey to their subscribers on the newsletter, and they are asking them which franchises should we bring back, and that one was on the list. So I know that they're thinking about it, and I'm really, really pumped. I would love to see, another story in Chuck Green and Frank West, and
give us another holiday, not Christmas. Give us like an Easter themed.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's what we need. But I think the last game wasn't as good as the previous one, so I'd really like them to give it a good, like, earnest try, and I know that it would do really, really well. So super fan of that. Also, I do have to shout out every opportunity I get that Microsoft needs to bring back 1 versus 100. It was the most
so good.
Fun social game that you could have. Lord, are you familiar with this? Did you know how it worked?
No,
It
no.
was so
Because
cool.
Lord was 5 years old when it was out.
I know, right? That could be that. So it was back in the 360 days when we all had avatars and stuff like that. So you can take the avatars or not. But essentially, it was an actual game show. And they would be like, okay, at 6 o'clock, we're going to have a show. And at 8 o'clock. So you got on your console at that time. You went into a room and you're waiting there. And then they would select 100 people to be the mob. And they would select one person to be the one. And then it was a trivia game with an actual host who's like sitting in the studio saying, hi guys, this is so-and-so. They introduce the person, they talk about what's going on in the day, then they start the game. But it was a real person. And then, which is live, being broadcast to all consoles at the exact same time. If you weren't selected to be the 1 or the 100, you could still play to win prizes and points and stuff like that and level up your characters with the questions that would come along. And then the game was essentially the mob would answer right or wrong. And if they answered wrong, they would get knocked out if the one answered right. And it was just a face-off that would eventually go down. At the very end, they would give you, it was points back in the day, like Microsoft points, so their currency. But I remember I won like a Contra game from it or something like that. So they gave away stuff to the audience as well. And you had a chance to actually be selected for this show. It was incredible fun.
Wow.
It was very fun.
Yeah.
How don't they have that type of stuff still going on? I love that. I love the live element.
Yeah, and like I would sit in a room with my buddies and we'd order pizza and we'd all four be logged in.
That's so
playing
fun.
the trivia game. And one of my buddies actually Darius got to be in
Friend of the pod.
to be in the mob. Yeah, and what pissed me off is I played that game religiously, like for every episode that was on. And then of course Darius gets to be pulled to be in the mob, and I didn't.
Elzeo.
I know. Exactly. Anyway, so that's my pick. Really cool. I definitely wish they would bring back some sort of live social experience. It doesn't have to be
not
1 versus
hosted
100.
by Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my god. Now that you said it, it's gonna you jinxed us, bro. That's exactly what's gonna happen.
I know. That's exactly what's gonna happen.
Well,
thanks.
Also, just with the success of Jackbox and all those games, I think that it's a perfect time now to strike while the iron's hot.
Agreed. They need something that's social and fun like that. One thing that's definitely social and fun are Matt Maulding's game brackets, and so I'm going to hand it off to him, and he can start the debate.
Yeah, so no trivia this week. Oh, it gets me every time.
But kind of on purpose at this point, because I'm so amused by it.
So no trivia this week because it really does take me a little bit of time to create that. So we're going to do a best video game weapon bracket. A little quick discussion. We only have a few minutes left. I want to hear your thoughts, and we're going to come up with the best video game weapon. So first up is the Final Fantasy VII Buster Sword versus the Halo Energy Sword. Matt Lord, what do you think?
Oh,
of those two weapons, which is
these
better?
are such good. I'm just like these are great weapons, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
Two strong contenders for sure.
To be honest, I think Buster Sword, even though players might not know exactly where it's from, I think that's more recognizable. So I'm going to do a Buster Sword.
Buster Sword is actually the most cosplayed weapon. It is cosplayed a lot.
I see it.
Buster Sword for you, Dan. What do you think?
Wait, what's the criteria again? Can you please clarify? Is it like
just the best one out of those two? What do you think is the best one?
But like, what would do the most damage, or just
no? Just like everything. Everything's taken into consideration, not damage. Like aesthetics, popularity, like whatever you want to attribute to it. It's just the best weapon.
This is going to be controversial, but I'm going to have to go with the energy sword. I just grew up playing Halo and loved it.
Yeah, I think Dan's going to be out on this. I think I have to go Buster Sword for this.
Yeah.
For
I have high respect for a Buster. But
yeah, it's just such an iconic weapon. If you're a gamer, you see that sword. I really do think you know exactly what that sword is and where it's from. Yeah. And then shout out Final Fantasy, the remake and everything. All right, so Half-Life's gravity gun versus the Portal gun.
Portal.
Dan says Portal.
I love Half-Life gravity gun. Ooh, I'm going there.
I knew that would be you. I mean, can I move things with my gun, or can I create a frickin' portal with it? I'm gonna go Portal. Come on,
Portal. Finally, someone's speaking some sense here.
There you go.
Portal wins for that. Okay, we're gonna go the Hitman piano wire or the garrote versus the Assassin's Creed hidden dagger. Which is the best weapon of those two?
It's got to be Hidden Dagger for me.
Oh, I was going to go Piano Wire.
Really?
Another split vote.
Whoa,
Another split
interesting.
vote.
Interesting.
Wait, can I just tell you what really?
Yeah.
Yes,
the
of course.
dagger.
Of course.
What pisses me off about the dagger is the last couple of games, you would sneak up behind someone, you'd be like, haha, yeah, I got this. And then they'd shiv them. And in the game, they didn't do an automatic kill. It would just injure them some. And I'm like, what? I just stabbed them, sliced the back of their neck and their spinal cord, and they're fine, and they turn around and fight me? No. That weapon's weak, and it does not even deserve to be on this list. I'm going Piano Wire.
Ooh. So, Dan, you actually just turned me because I was going to go Assassin's Creed Hidden Dagger. I mean, those guys have to lose a finger to use it. You know, that's some real... But every time Hitman, you use that garrote or that piano wire, you confirm your kill. You get that kill, it's done. I go Hitman Piano Wire too.
Thank you.
So next is, or finally of the two, we've got Fallout's Fat Man versus Mega Man's Mega Buster Gun.
Oh man, I love a Fat Man. We're going Fat Man.
Fat Man for Lord. Do you hear that, Grinder? He loves a fat man.
I'm going Mega Man. I just love that whole game, and so
oh god, another split vote.
I know. I don't mean to be a dick and do that. I would, but in this case, I really mean it.
No, but just remember rolling into Megaton with that Fat Man, just blowing up the entire town with that sucker. Oh, that felt nice.
But I also remember Mega Man's gun that could absorb the powers of his fallen enemies and then use them. Brilliant. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Fat Man. I also love a Fat Man. Okay, so now now we're breaking it down. We've got the Buster Sword versus the Portal Gun, which is the best game.
I'm
best
going
weapon,
Buster Sword.
Agreed.
Okay.
Buster Sword.
Buster Sword. Oh, it doesn't even matter my vote. I would go Portal Gun. Doesn't matter. We've got Buster Sword, the winner. We've got Hitman's Piano Wire versus the Fallout Fat Man.
I'm going to go Fat Man this time. You hear that, Grinder? All three of them. 3 Fat Men, please.
That is, Fat Man for me.
And I would also go Fat Man. I think that's the iconic weapon from Fallout. Okay, so now we've got Buster Sword for the win versus Fallout Fat Man.
Okay, hold on before we do this.
Yeah.
I do have...
Let's talk about this.
Yeah, let's talk about this for a second. Because I do have one candidate that was not considered on the list, so I'd like to write in a candidate.
A write-in.
Oh,
we have a
write-in.
yes. Write-in candidate.
Yes. Now, this weapon is iconic. It comes with a minigame. It really is the definition of the franchise, and it combines 2 things that I adore very much. That is shotguns and chainsaws. And I'm bringing forth, gentlemen, the Lancer from Gears of War.
I like that. I like that addition.
I just want to throw it out there. You can poo-poo, you can veto, but I just have to say it should be considered because a chainsaw shotgun is a brilliant
everyone doesn't
weapon.
get a participation medal. I had to narrow it down. You know what did make this list is the Master Sword. I mean, Master is in the name.
Yeah,
like that didn't make this list.
I'm just saying, emotionally, my heart belongs to a chainsaw shotgun.
I mean, for me, I would go Buster Sword over Chainsaw Shotgun. So,
okay,
Buster Sword has my win.
I completely respect the write-in Lancer sword, the Lancer, assault rifles, Lancer sword, chainsaw, totally
chainsaw
great
shotgun.
time. But well, I still, you know what, man. I think I still got to go Fat Man. I love a nuclear bomb handheld is such a unique.
It's true.
It's a uniquely weird weapon, and you're gonna get a lot of devastation out of it. So it's got to be Fat Man.
All right, so we got Buster Sword, Fat Man, and Chainsaw Shotgun. I think it's a 3-way tie. I think it's a 3-way tie for the winner.
It's a 3-way tie.
Unless you want me to get rid of my Gears of War.
No, totally. You can totally keep it in. It's fine.
I totally like it.
I didn't
but
mean to ruin your whole entire game. Well,
if
just
anyone
part.
wants to write in and tell us how we're completely wrong, then they're absolutely welcome
there
to.
you go. Write in. Let us know what your choices are. You can find us on Twitter at Good Play With You on Twitter, or you can email us at goodplayingwithyou@gmail.com, or you can find us here on YouTube at Good Playing With You.
Great point, Matt, and I appreciate you bringing those up. And on that note, we need to wrap things up, but please make sure you are subscribed to all of the socials that Matt just mentioned. That's pretty much all the time we have today. On behalf of the Good Playing crew, Matt Lord, Matt Maulding, and myself, Dan Whitehill, have a great weekend, and as always, good playing with you.
Good playing with you.
Good playing with you.